What is air resistance? Objective. Explain how air resistance affects moving objects. Key terms. Air resistance. Force that opposes the movement of an object in air. Terminal velocity. Speed at which air resistance and gravity acting on a falling object are equal. Vacuum. Empty space. Falling objects. The force that opposes the downward motion of objects falling through Earth's atmosphere is called air resistance. Air resistance is not the same for all objects. The greater the surface area of an object, the greater the air resistance. Suppose, for example, an oak leaf and an acorn fall from a tree. The leaf flutters slowly to the ground, whereas the acorn drops straight down. As each object falls, air pushes up against the surfaces of the objects. The leaf has a greater surface area than the acorn. As a result, air pushes with more force against the leaf than it does against the acorn. The leaf is slowed down more than the acorn, so the acorn hits the ground first. Predict. Which falling object will hit the ground first? A marble or a feather? Terminal velocity. When an object is dropped from a high place, gravity pulls the object toward Earth. As it falls, gravity causes the object to accelerate. Its velocity and air resistance increase at steady rates. At some point, the upward force of air resistance becomes equal to the downward pull of gravity. At this point, the object reaches its terminal velocity. It stops accelerating, and its velocity remains the same for the rest of its downward trip. 2. Describe. What happens to an object's velocity as it falls? Free fall. A vacuum is empty space. If a bowling ball and a sheet of paper were dropped from the same height in a vacuum, they would hit the ground at the same time. Because there is no air in a vacuum, there is no air resistance to slow the objects as they fall. All objects fall at the same speed in a vacuum. When the Apollo astronauts landed on the moon, they tested this idea. There is no air on the moon. One of the astronauts dropped a feather and a hammer at the same time and from the same height. Look at figure 1221. What do you think happened? The hammer and the feather hit the ground at the same time. Define. What is a vacuum? Checking concepts. 1. When an object is first dropped, its speed, blank. 2. As an object falls, it will reach blank because of air resistance. 3. When you drop an object, blank slows it down. 4. There is no blank in a vacuum. 5. All objects accelerate at the same rate in a blank. Thinking critically. 6. Hypothesize. Certain birds spread their wings before they land. Why do they do this? Explain.